Imagine stepping off the plane at JFK Airport in the summer of 2025. Outside, the sun blazes just like any typical July day, and the flight schedule remains packed as usual. But inside the terminal, something feels off, so strange it sends a chill down your spine. Not because the AC is too cold, because of the silence. A strange, unsettling emptiness fills the air. Luggage carousels spin quietly with no one waiting. The rows of seats are no longer filled with laughing children or excited tourists snapping selfies in front of the American flag. Instead, what you see are the blank, puzzled stares of airport staff. Not because they're overwhelmed, but because they don't know when or if the crowds will ever return. This isn't a scene out of the post-COVID era. There are no travel bans, no lockdowns. And yet, America's major international airports, from Los Angeles to Chicago, from Miami to Seattle, all share the same expression: weary and quiet. Duty-free stores have shut down some of their counters. Coffee shops open later and close earlier. Check-in staff are now less busy than ever. The latest statistics paint a stark picture. In the first 6 months of 2025, international arrivals to the US dropped by 14% compared to the same period last year. That might sound like a small slip, but when converted into economic terms, it means over $21 billion have vanished. Not because of war, natural disasters, or a financial crisis, but simply because the world no longer wants to come to America. And perhaps the most alarming part is, no one is truly surprised. Because the signs have been there for a while. Stories of people being held at the border for no clear reason, travel warnings from foreign embassies, and a growing sense that America is closing itself off, even if no one's saying it out loud. Tourism isn't an industry that collapses over a few bad headlines. But when doubt seeps into the journey itself, when America's image is no longer tied to friendliness, freedom, and openness, a plane ticket stops being just a piece of paper. It becomes a choice. And one by one, the world is choosing elsewhere. So now, the question is no longer, can American tourism recover? It's, how did it fall this far in the first place? And surprisingly, the answer doesn't lie in tourism policies. It's not about airlines or hotel chains. It starts somewhere seemingly unrelated. Tariffs, when a tax on goods ends up hurting a service industry that had nothing to do with it. And from there, the dominoes began to fall. Across borders, airports, seaports, and deep into the hearts of millions who once dreamed of setting foot in America. Tariffs might seem like nothing more than dry, cryptic lines in economic documents. And yet, they've changed the way people book flights. They've emptied restaurants that were once packed with tourists, and they've shaken an entire industry that seemed unrelated: tourism. In 2025, the Trump administration expanded trade tariffs targeting a wide range of economic partners, from China to Europe, but tensions ran especially high with Canada. Goods from the land of the maple leaf were hit with double, even triple the tariffs. In response, a powerful and emotional chain reaction began. Canadians started saying no to America. They stopped buying American products. They stopped crossing the border for shopping sprees or weekend getaways. Some even stopped coming to the US for medical treatment, once a booming and lucrative service sector. A boycott of America began to trend on social media, gaining traction as a symbolic act of protest. Its name, dripping with irony, the Trump Slump. In Quebec, border towns that once thrived on cross-border traffic fell silent. Restaurants, retail stores, even gas stations saw their revenues plummet by more than 30%. The estimated losses in US regions near the Canadian border reached $3 billion. Not due to war, but simply because people chose not to come. But the wave didn't stop at Canada. It spread to France, Germany, the UK. Travelers who once saw America as their top destination were now looking elsewhere. They turned to the Mediterranean, to Australia, to Thailand, to Vietnam. Not because those places were cheaper, but because they felt more welcoming. Because you see, tourism isn't about money. It's about emotion. It's about feeling safe when you step off a plane in a foreign land. It's about the smile from the immigration officer, the kindness of the first cab driver you meet. And when the image of America becomes tied to words like detained, interrogated, and denied, the decision no longer needs much justification. America isn't just losing tourists. It's losing a rare kind of trust, the belief that this is a land of open opportunity, a place anyone can visit and feel like they're part of the world. But when each international flight gets cut, each travel agency cancels tours, and each traveler walks away without a second thought, then the losses are no longer projections. They're reality. And this is the beginning of a much larger spiral, where the absence of tourists starts to ripple into every corner of the economy. It's no longer just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's real lives being pulled into the current. And that's when we're forced to confront the real question. How long can America hold on when the cost isn't just lost revenue, but an entire ecosystem slowly losing its lifeblood because trust has begun to crack? Tourists have stopped coming, and the consequences go far beyond empty hotel rooms or half-full flights. Because tourism at its core isn't a standalone industry. It's the red thread that weaves together hundreds of others. And once that thread snaps, everything starts to unravel. From chefs in New York restaurants to taxi drivers in Las Vegas, from street performers in San Francisco to college students working part-time in small Boston cafes, everyone is feeling the pressure rise day by day. The tips are dwindling. Work shifts are shrinking. Dreams once fueled by the smiles of travelers from far away have faded into hazy memories. The financial losses are easy to measure. For every 1% drop in international visitors, the U.S. economy loses roughly $1.8 billion in export revenue. But what's more frightening is the invisible loss, the sense of deflation spreading like an oil slick. When a family-owned restaurant shutters its doors after 3 generations serving tourists, when a small museum closes because no one comes anymore, when people who've devoted their lives to hospitality have to leave their cities, searching for work they never wanted. In Florida, once a magnet for millions of European tourists each year, beachfront resorts now operate at just a third of their capacity. In Chicago, cultural tours, once proudly billed as windows into the soul of America, now drive mostly empty. And in Hawaii, the jewel of Pacific tourism, locals are debating whether to convert vacation properties into residential housing because there's no one left to rent them. Behind every canceled event, every empty flight, every locked door, there's a personal story. A father or mother sitting their kids down to say, "We can't stay here anymore." A street artist turning to delivery work to survive. An international student who once dreamed of a US degree now applying to Australia or Canada instead, driven away by high tuition and an ever-widening cultural gap. And slowly, the very thing that was once America's greatest soft power, its cultural appeal, its spirit of openness, its image as a country worth visiting, begins to fade. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. It can't be revived with ad campaigns. It has to be restored through real experiences, face-to-face encounters, handshakes, and unprejudiced conversations between people. But tragically, just when America most needs to reconnect emotionally with the world, another barrier quietly rises, not from the outside, but from within its own borders. Something invisible yet powerful: immigration policy. When stories grow of travelers being held at airports, interrogated without cause or suddenly deported with no explanation, admiration begins to give way to suspicion, and the most painful question starts to surface in the minds of would-be visitors. Am I still truly welcome in America? They say first impressions are the hardest to forget. And for a country, that first impression is its border. It's how you're greeted when you step off the plane, the look in the immigration officer's eyes, and the tone of the questions asked at passport control. It's not the brightly printed "Welcome to America" poster on the wall, but the actual feeling you get as you stand in that long line, waiting. Sadly, in America in 2025, that feeling is growing heavier by the day. Many travelers, even those who visited the US multiple times, now carry a quiet anxiety. The excitement is gone, replaced by caution. The ease has faded, replaced by tension. Reports from international tourism organizations and airlines show a rise in cases where visitors are being held at American airports, interrogated or denied entry without clear reasons, even when holding valid visas or green cards. Some are even deported on the spot. No explanation, no chance to speak. European diplomatic agencies have spoken out. France has advised its citizens to mentally prepare before traveling to the US. Germany, the UK, Portugal, all have issued similar warnings. Behind the scenes, many European tour operators have quietly removed US trips from their 2025 catalogs, not because of cost, but because of the psychological toll on their customers. China, America's major trade partner and strategic rival, has seized the moment. Beijing hasn't just advised its citizens to avoid the US, it has described the country as unpredictable and unsafe for foreigners. This isn't just a legal caution, it's a diplomatic maneuver, planting the idea in the minds of Chinese travelers that America is no longer worth visiting. The ripple effect of this doubt moves faster than any tourism campaign, and it's fueled by social media, by journalism, and by first-person accounts. Stories of people being questioned for carrying books in their native language, being suspected of illegal immigration despite holding return tickets, being asked why they didn't bring wedding photos if traveling with a spouse. Stories that sound absurd, but happen every day. And with each story, another small piece of the image of a welcoming America crumbles. When major airlines like Lufthansa, KLM, and Air France start slashing flights to the US, many assume it's due to broader struggles in global aviation. But the deeper truth is, demand has vanished. More and more seats go unsold, even though ticket prices are now lower than before the pandemic. And when travelers begin asking themselves, why should I go to a place where I'm not sure I'm even welcome? Then the very reason to visit America begins to dissolve. The world of travel is not short on options. Europe remains enchanting. Southeast Asia is increasingly vibrant. The Middle East is pouring investment into hospitality. America once stood as the icon, the dream. But that dream can't endure if even the dreamers no longer feel the door is open. And that is the most painful paradox. Just as the rest of the world is striving to reopen, to extend a warm welcome, to roll out flexible visa policies and friendly campaigns, America appears to be stepping back, closing in on itself at the height of global connection. A world is opening its arms while the United States, door by door, policy by policy, emotion by emotion, is slowly closing its own. On the other side of the sky, nations are throwing their doors wide open. While the United States tightens its borders step by step, China has unveiled a visa-free list for over 75 countries, spanning Asia, Europe, and Latin America. It's no accident. It's a calculated strategy to turn every visitor into an ambassador for a modern, friendly, and fast-rising China. Southeast Asian nations aren't sitting still either. Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia are racing to lower airfares, waive short-term visas, and launch a flurry of tourism events, from light festivals to vibrant street food fairs, all with a singular goal: to draw travelers in. Even Europe, long a classic destination, is undergoing a major revamp. Schengen countries have agreed to streamline visa processes, boost low-cost intra-European flights, and rebuild the image of an open, welcoming continent after years of crises. In France, high-speed rail terminals connecting airports to central Paris now feature announcements in Vietnamese, Thai, and Hindi, a warm hello extended to the world. In Spain, specialized tours tailored for Asian travelers are booming, with services finely tuned to each country's cultural preferences. And amid all this momentum and renewal, America feels like an old song left unrevised. There's no large-scale national campaign, no clear message from the central government, no new signals of easing visa requirements, streamlining entry procedures, or refreshing the nation's image. While airports across the globe are lit up and alive with voices from everywhere, American terminals remain hushed, as if waiting for a miracle to just happen on its own. But global appeal cannot be restored through hope alone. It takes initiative. It takes a strategy. Because tourism, beyond just the act of traveling, is part of a nation's soft power. It's the image, the story, the experience each individual brings home and shares with the world. It's how a country wins hearts not through firepower, but through the smile of a border agent, the safety of its streets, and the kindness of its people. When a country loses tourists, it doesn't just lose money. It loses its chance to tell its own story. It loses the real-world interactions, where prejudices can dissolve with a handshake, a shared coffee, a kind look. And over time, the world forgets who that country used to be. That's no longer just an economic issue. It's about reputation, standing, and being present on the emotional map of humanity. So now the question isn't whether America can recover its tourism industry. It's, does America still have the courage to change the way the world feels about it? And if it does, where should that change begin? Perhaps the time has come for a clear pivot, not just in political statements, but in real, tangible policies. A strategic shift so that America doesn't just reopen with a boarding pass, but with the heart of a nation that once stood as a beacon of welcome, freedom, and hope. Change doesn't come from polished sound bites on television. And once trust is broken, it can't be repaired with a few tweets or posters at international airports. If America wants to reclaim its place, not just in the tourism industry, but in the hearts of the world, it will take more than a campaign. It will take a deep, strategic, and consistent shift, beginning with how the country treats those who come knocking at its door. That strategy can't be confined to a handful of isolated states. As much as Hawaii, Nevada, or New York are trying with welcome back campaigns to attract tourists, they're like small flames struggling in a downpour, unless a wind from the federal level fans them into a unified wave. The perception of a country isn't built by a few regions. It comes from a collective impression, a unified message, a cohesive set of policies, and most importantly, from attitude. The federal government needs to step out of its comfort zone. It can't focus solely on border security by tightening visas, adding more layers to entry, and still expect the world to come chasing the American dream. That dream is fading, not because it's lost its allure, but because America itself is hiding it behind layers of doubt and distance. Agencies like the Department of Homeland Security and Customs and Border Protection, CBP, must be directed to rethink their approach. Pre-clearance programs in travelers' home countries already being piloted should be expanded and improved. Screening systems need to become more transparent, more welcoming, and above all, more humane. Suspicious interrogations should be replaced with questions grounded in goodwill, because no one wants to begin their journey under a gaze of suspicion, feeling treated like a potential criminal. Beyond that, airlines, tourism boards, hotels, shopping centers, they all need to be brought into a national strategy for restoring America's image. Not just promotion, but reconstruction. A rebuilding of how Americans see the outside world and how the outside world comes to feel about America. There can be no real shift if anti-immigrant rhetoric still echoes on national television, if heated debates about closing borders continue to dominate headlines, or if visa rules keep tightening without explanation. A country is truly great only when it knows how to open its heart at the right time. And right now, America needs to do just that. Not to protect revenue, but to preserve something far more valuable, its connection to the world. Only when people feel genuinely welcome, not by posters, but by the way they're treated, will a ticket to the United States hold real value. Not measured by the money spent, but by the trust invested. And that's something no industry can ever buy back, once a nation allows it to slip away. There are no gunshots, no tanks, and yet a battle is underway, silent, undeclared, and without smoke or fire. It's a war fought on the front lines of soft power, where a nation is measured not just by its GDP, but by how it is perceived, chosen, visited, lived in, and spoken of. And in that battle, tourism is one of the most powerful tools. When you choose to visit a country, you're placing trust in its safety, in its kindness, and in the values it represents. You're not just going to see the sights to relax or to spend money, you're going to connect, to understand a different world, and sometimes to feel like you're part of something bigger. That's why tourism is no longer just an industry. It's geopolitics. It's unspoken dialogue between peoples. It's a mirror reflecting how a nation treats the world. But when people hesitate at your borders, when every visa application feels like a stressful ordeal, when suspicion replaces welcome, what's lost isn't just billions in revenue. It's a piece of that nation's soul in the eyes of the world. And the scariest part is that this loss happens quietly, day by day, week by week, until people no longer remember that America was once at the top of their travel list. The United States may be a superpower. It may have the strongest military, the most advanced technology, and a pop culture that reaches every corner of the globe. But if no one wants to visit, if no one wants to hear your story, if no one wants to set foot on your land, then that's a different kind of failure. One that can't be fixed by defense budgets or interest rates. One that can only be healed through genuine openness. Tourism isn't a luxury. It's a chance for the world to come closer. And sometimes all it takes is a kind look at the airport, a sincere greeting, or a thoughtful immigration policy to turn a trip into a beautiful memory. If you too believe that tourism is about more than just tickets and suitcases, if you believe a country's image is built through small, honest moments, leave us a comment below. What are your thoughts on the state of tourism in America? Have you ever felt unwelcome when arriving somewhere? We'd love to hear your story. And if you found this video thought-provoking, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. We'll continue bringing you in-depth perspectives on a world where geopolitics isn't just drawn on maps, but told through human stories. Thank you for listening.